What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of KLCNE, which stands for Kingdom Leads Canada News and Entertainment. I'm your host, Zamontheplat, and today we're going to be talking about two subjects. Normally in our videos we cover three, but today, because I have a few pieces of content I'd like to provide commentary on, it's supposed to take up more time than we would have expected. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to comment, don't forget to like. Let's get into today's video. The first thing we're going to talk about today is immigration. And you guessed it, I have some Trump clips. Let's get right into those.
We don't want those people. We have enough problems. We don't want those people.
Is that a year, 2 years?
No time limit.
And then
But it could be a long time.
you said big.
We don't want those people. Do you understand that?
I understand.
You understand it?
I understand.
Who are you with?
I'm with News Nation. So
Okay,
my
News
name's
Nation.
Lindsay.
News Nation. Great. Right.
Thank
Let
you.
me just tell you something. We don't want those people. Does that make sense? You know why we don't want them? Because many have been no good, and they shouldn't be in our country.
Every country needs to be super intentional about who they allow in and who they keep out. Just like within a family, like you don't want every and any person coming into your home. It can become very dangerous because, like, we both understand, if you believe in God, you believe in higher power, but we're not New Age here. Jesus Christ is Lord, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. One thing we know is that evil exists and good exists. Good is on the side of God, and evil is always on the side of Satan. So if you open your house up to everything, you're gonna let in some evil. So I'll start by saying that, but I believe this is in response to the assassination that took place of an army woman at the hands of an immigrant. Are all immigrants bad? No, we're all immigrants. If we're not First Nations, we're all immigrants. But there's the immigrants that want to assimilate into society, don't want to threaten society, the citizens of that country. And then there are people who just become super invested in this idea of taking down America from the inside. So that's what I'll say about video number one. You know, Trump says whatever comes into his head, which can be refreshing whenever you're comparing him to other politicians that say whatever you want to hear. So I believe, because we have so many politicians that tell you exactly what you want to hear, I'm on the side of, it is refreshing to hear someone just speak their mind. And it's not always going to be politically correct. I prefer we live in a nation that focuses on not being politically correct, but simply telling their truth. And then we can cipher through that based on, okay, well, who does this type of language cause harm to? And when we say cause harm, it really isn't causing harm unless you're executing like an order. But yeah, let's get to the next video.
People who spent years calling America racist are now crying online because they're being sent back to the same country they swore was better than here. Y'all like the video right here, follow for more. And let's get into this one. You see the meltdown videos everywhere, tears, anger, demands, but none of them mention the fraud investigations, the expired visas, the money that moved through criminal networks, or the abuse of programs paid for by the taxpayers. The moment accountability shows up, they all act shocked. I look at these videos and all I see is the same contradiction. Somalia is beautiful when they want moral high ground, but Somalia becomes unsafe the moment removal papers arrive. They switch the story depending on what benefits them. The reactions are emotional because the system finally stopped bending. Deportations are happening because laws exist, because agencies uncovered fraud rings, because certain groups are draining millions from health, housing, and social programs that working Americans rely on. There's nothing complicated here. People act like the West owes everyone a comfortable life, like your job is to give everyone else more than what you could give your own family. And that is not how a country works. You cannot build a healthy society by subsidizing the failure of another one. And while all this is going on, the people who should be rebuilding Somalia, protecting Somalia, and modernizing Somalia are here demanding benefits. Their own country loses the adults who should be leading it. But Americans care about Americans who can't afford homes. They care about the people being pushed out of work by cheap labor. They care about a safe country. They do not care about entitlement meltdowns on TikTok. Accountability is not cruelty. Borders are not cruelty. Deportations are not cruelty. They're the basic function of a stable nation. Western countries are finally acting like it. Y'all like the video right there? Follow for more. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Okay, now, whoo, okay, so, all right, here's my response to that. I agree. Why do I agree as the child of immigrants? I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I've been on the side of immigrants who are like, yeah, I love my country, but you know, I'm over here because there's more opportunities here. I had to leave, but I'm gonna go back. Like, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna make my money and I'm gonna go back. And then I've also been on the side, and I actually agreed with them. Like, that makes sense, especially if we're talking about like people who are descendants of, you know, the aboriginals of these countries that faced wars and colonialism. So it makes sense for them to benefit from that same colonialism that that nation imposed on their country. That was one side. And then there's the other side where it's like, what are you doing in Canada if you love your country so much? Like, what are you really doing here? I'm on that side. I've been on both sides. You're meeting me right now in 2025, the end of 2025. You're meeting me, the version of Zamontheplat that understands the perspective that this guy has towards people who really just want to go back to their country because they rave about it. What was the point of coming here? Because here's the thing. Everyone is always ready. And when I say everyone, let me redact that. People who are against restrictions on immigration believe that every country where people are coming to the Western Hemisphere, or specifically the first world, Canada and America, must be coming from countries that America and Canada have destroyed. If they have destroyed all of these countries, but we also have people coming in from countries that are doing very well, like for example China. We have many people coming, the Caribbean, because contrary to popular belief, there are wealthy Caribbean countries. I happen to be a descendant from one of them, which is Trinidad. Their economy is doing great and people still come here. Not every country fits into that category of, oh, well, we were negatively affected by America, so we better come over there and get some benefits. Most of the time, you have people who do not want to work. And when I say we don't want to work, when they come here, everyone realizes, damn, I'm gonna have to work and I'm gonna have to work harder. But at least this way, when I work hard, because there are incentives in place, I'm gonna be more comfortable in my labor. I'm not going to be a slave the way I could have been back in my country. And especially for people from Somalia, this is like, I haven't been to Somalia, but I've been to East Africa. And based on the cost of the dollar, based on how the locals behave, you're going to be treated like a slave unless you have the right relationships, unless you do extremely well in your education and your family has the money to fund a business idea that you may have. You're going to have less of a opportunity in your own country, not because of America, but because of the comparison, where over here, when you're working, you have rights. But over there, when you're working, you don't have rights. So a lot of people need to be more forthcoming when they come to America, when they come to Canada, and make a decision. Are you here because you're going to be here? No one's saying you can't travel. You can travel. But are you going to be here and be an ally to the country? Or are you going to come here, take what you want, and then dip? And when you do dip, why should anyone who has nowhere else to go because they don't care to go anywhere else, why should they have to pay for your disloyalty? In fact, let me just finish off here. Those are the two videos that cover our topic of immigration today that I wanted to react to. And I want to provide a little bit more commentary here. If you are someone who wants to build, wants to be a part of a society that respects its citizens, offers its citizens rights, then yes, Canada and America can be the place for you. But when you come here, you need to leave behind doctrines and ideologies that don't align with this society. I am not for making Canada look like any other country. I'm not for making America look like any other country. We have to decide as people who are loyal primarily. Like, no one can say like, okay, I'm gonna just hate my foreign country. No, no, no. But my loyalty has to first be to the country I live in, which is Canada or the States. My loyalties have to be here first. When we go to other countries, because Canadians and Americans travel, there are restrictions. There are things that we cannot do, even though we got money, we're coming to an economy over there, we still have to comply. It's not simply enough to say, well, I'm bringing money to your economy. That's not enough. You have to be someone who's going to respect the ideologies of the country. And if you don't like the ideologies, you don't go. Like, I'm seeing so many people, and I'm applauding these people who are saying things like, yeah, I can't go to that place because that's an ideology that I don't want to follow. For example, I don't know if I'll have the clip, but if I find it, I'll put it next. There was a girl who was in the Maldives, and she's told she can't wear bathing suits in the Maldives. They have certain areas that are designated for people who want to wear a bikini or whatever.
Did you know that it's actually illegal to wear a bikini in the Maldives? This is because the Maldives is an Islamic country, and alongside alcohol, bikinis are also prohibited unless you're staying on a private resort or going to one of the more touristy local islands that have bikini designated beaches. But if you're on a very local island like I currently am, you're not allowed to wear a bikini, and unfortunately I didn't pack a wetsuit for this trip, so I'm just swimming in this incredibly blue water fully clothed, but it's still so worth it. And I feel like this is such a perfect example of how even if you're traveling in the most amazing tropical paradise in the world, you still have to respect local customs.
Now imagine if Canada made certain laws based on attire. Because we've become such a welcoming place, there are people who are allowed to be super vocal to say, hey, that's not fair. But it is going to come down to what laws get passed and how people, the society, how the citizens respond to it. If they're for it and you come here and we impose that law on you, you have to follow it. Otherwise, don't come here, because the same thing happens when we go to other countries. Now, let's get into the Venezuela topic number 2.
And President Trump has confirmed to the New York Times he had a phone call with Venezuela's president, but has refused to reveal any details after declaring the country's airspace should be considered closed. Trump issued the warning on social media Saturday, but told reporters yesterday it was not a signal an airstrike is imminent, saying, quote, don't read anything into it. The U.S. has recently deployed multiple warships in the Caribbean Sea near Venezuela under the pretext of drug interdiction. Venezuela has accused the U.S. of attempting to use military threats to instigate regime change and expand its military presence in Latin America.
So for those of you that haven't been following, Venezuela right now is in a conflict with the United States. Trump specifically is saying that it's in regards to drug trafficking, drugs that are coming in from Venezuela, that this regime underneath Venezuela's current sitting president needs to be removed, placed, whatever. I don't know how Trump plans on doing that. We're gonna find out in the weeks to come. But as it stands, this is what's happening. Venezuela is vulnerable to American attack because Trump has said so, not explicitly, but with certain hints and by sending ships into the Caribbean Sea. Here's the next clip.
I want to talk about what's happening in Venezuela and give some context from an actual Venezuelan. Maduro, bad. Trump, bad. Getting rid of Maduro, good. An American intervention into Venezuela, bad. Now you're going to see a lot of Venezuelans who seem to be in support of this American intervention, not because we're naive or because we don't understand what it could mean. Nobody wants to be bombed by the Yanks, okay? But that should give you an idea as just how desperate Venezuelans are. Maduro is not the legal president of Venezuela. He lost the 2024 election to Edmundo González. That is an indisputable fact. But this isn't so much about the nitty-gritty of the politics as much as it is about the effects of those politics on the people. Imagine this. You wake up, there's no water, as usual. The lights have been out for about 10 hours. Your fridge starts to smell because the power keeps going out. So you're like, okay, I'm gonna go out and buy some new food. You get there and the food is even more expensive than it was before. Food has gone up 21.9% in price since just last October. Actually, food prices have gone up 12,000% since 2009. So that's like a tomato being worth $1. Now that same tomato is worth $12,000. That's how crazy the food situation is in Venezuela. These rolling blackouts too that I mentioned have a huge effect on the hospital systems. Often you will be in the middle of surgery and the electricity goes off. So you have a country where you have very little access to food, and we know little access to food usually means a huge increase in crime. That has happened in Venezuela. You have a dangerous country, you don't have access to food, water, electricity, and your hospital systems have been terrible. On top of these brutal living conditions, you have this political violence hovering on top of you. If you speak out about what's happening, you are very likely to be disappeared into El Helicoide, which is the largest torture center in the Americas. In July of 2024 came Operation Tuntun. So basically the government would come knocking on your door if you made any posts that were against the government. And if your neighbors outed you for being out protesting, you would be likely to be kidnapped and sent to this torture center. In just the month of July 2024, 1,900 political prisoners were taken. Those numbers have gone up to over 3,000, most of those being youth and most of those being underage girls. Since 2014, there has been 17,888 politically motivated arrests in Venezuela. More than 8 million Venezuelans have fled the country. Our families are scattered across the world because we can't safely live home. And back in Venezuela, the regime allows mining that is tearing apart the Orinoco Delta, poisoning rivers with mercury and displacing indigenous people, allowing miners to go into indigenous territories, spreading diseases, and kidnapping and human trafficking indigenous women. So when you see Venezuelans expressing support for an invasion, please understand, no one wants to be invaded, especially not by a country with such a brutal, violent global history. But Venezuelans are running out of options. Our hope is real. But underneath that hope is fear, exhaustion, and deep sadness for having to survive this horrific, violent, corrupt dictatorship. So please give us some space to feel all these emotions. Venezuelans aren't dumb. We are hardworking people who just want the best, like everyone else, to live a normal life. Thanks for listening.
I don't know if she'll ever see this video, but really and truly, I empathize. I completely empathize. It's a very sad thing, like imagining that a loved one could have a great doctor performing surgery on them, and during that surgery, because of the politicians who are running the country, the power could just go out during surgery. That's insane. I'm so sorry. With that being said, I'm grateful because I know that I'm in a country that if that took place, lawsuits would be filed. There is due process. There are systems in place, no matter what politician is empowered with an opportunity for justice. And that's something that I don't ever want to lose. I'm not saying that we don't have politicians who are corruptible or who are corrupt. But one thing we have in Canada and America is a system that allows us to go through a process, a system that is absent in Venezuela. Am I saying that America should be the savior? No, but let me ask you this. And in the comment section, you can share your feedback, your response. I don't know where she's filming this from. I don't know. She has a passport in her hand. I didn't zoom in. If you zoom in, let me know where it's from. However, where she is right now could be the UK, it could be, but I believe it's in a place that has good ties to America, an alliance with America or Canada itself. And the fact that you have the ability to speak freely, and whether you fear persecution or not, you are continuing, you have a roof over your head at this time. If America was not involved, if Canada was not involved, if that first world nation, I'm making assumptions here, so if she actually is in Venezuela, then there would be negative repercussions for what she's saying if all that is true, right? I know in Canada there are many people, especially during lockdown, because yeah, during lockdown, I don't want to go back there right now, but there were many Canadians that stood up against tyranny during lockdown. And when they stood up against them, yes, they faced lawsuits, but there was enough due process to allow them to win cases, to allow them to receive payment, compensation, to allow them to actually regain their employment afterwards, because our system isn't broken. There are parts that have little issues and kinks in them, but it's not broken. And I urge every Canadian, every American to stop promoting this propaganda that America and Canada are so evil. Because if they were, we would be done for. Praise God first and foremost, but a nation that is submitted to the wrong authority, that has the wrong practices, that doesn't have the right alliances, that comes into agreement with certain methods of earning its money, does not last long. And the fact that we're still standing, there is a system that, and not just that we're still standing, because that's not enough. The fact that you can still come to these countries and live comfortably, and no one's gonna live forever, don't knock it. Because if you knock it too hard, you might knock it to the point where everyone destroys what you once enjoyed, and now you have something that resembles the country you came from. And I don't want America and Canada to reflect those countries, resemble those countries in any way. All right? That's a fact. Next video.
The people, United States, listen to me. War of Caribbean, war South America. No. Peace. Yes. Y es una tarea que les doy desde aquí a todas las fuerzas populares, sociales, políticas, militares, policiales, a todas las fuerzas de la patria, a no caer en provocaciones en ningún momento, pero a movilizarse con fervor patriótico para decirle: fuera de aquí, barcos imperialistas, fuera de aquí, amenazas militares. Venezuela se respeta.
All right, so for those of you that maybe couldn't read the captions, he said, war, no. Sorry, excuse me. War, no. Peace, yes. Respect, Venezuela. Patriotism. Let me just say something about patriotism. Patriotism is healthy. Patriotism is needed. It's required in order for your country to grow and develop. Otherwise, what's the incentive? Like, if you don't like the country where you are, you don't care what happens there. You don't care. You really don't. It encourages a certain type of respect, behavior, things like that. What I want to know is who's telling the truth here, because he's talking about Venezuela needs to be respected. And then you have Trump, in fact, not Trump, but the woman who was just speaking, exposing that this country is corrupt. It's corrupt. So you see how the lines are like blurry? This is something we need to take note of as Christians, because a lot of us don't have the time to deep dive and watch multiple videos, which is why you have me, which is why you have KLCNE, to do some digging for you. Go and look at things objectively, not emotionally, but through a lens of hope, as opposed to abysmal, like just dire, depressed, like the world is ending and that's it. Like, that's not our perspective. Yes, we're coming closer to the end of the times, but if you read the Bible, that's actually a good thing. There's going to be a persecution period. Every day we're supposed to die to flesh, but it's never for nothing. It's always for a greater good, unless you're just, you know, a device for Satan. And this is where you have to differentiate between the fruits of the flesh and the fruits of the spirit. Who's telling the truth here? Is it the Venezuelan leader, or is it the civilian who said, listen, this guy, under this guy, this is what we're experiencing in hospitals, this is what we're experiencing when it comes to our food, when it comes to crime, They're fleeing. One thing I could tell you as a Caribbean, a descendant of Trinis, a ton of Venezuelans are in Trinidad. That's something I've been hearing. They're like, yes, the Venezuelans, they've been coming. So I can verify that. That's a fact. Why are they coming in multitudes is the question. If it seems like the woman was correct, no matter how polite, kind, charismatic this leader appears on this video, you have to look at it from all perspectives. So yeah, next clip. This was Trump apparently back in 2023. It's a short clip.
Venezuela. How about we're buying oil from Venezuela? When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. It would have been right next door. But now we're buying oil from Venezuela, so we're making a dictator very rich. Can you believe this?
So let's look into some economics. All right, so if you are buying from someone who has a resource that you need, but that person who is selling or offering you that resource is doing or owns that resource by means of tyranny or by means of being a dictator who allows surgeries to go awry, people to potentially die. She didn't mention deaths, but I'd imagine that can happen, or complications to take place during surgery because they don't care about the power in the hospitals, sending your citizens to prison. Crime is rampant, but you're buying from that person. Every dollar you spend is equipping that person with more power. So Trump isn't wrong in what he said there. He's not. This brings me back to the video where we were talking about Tesla and their AI interface called Grok, whatever, basically asking a child, literally asking a child for nudes because this is supposed to be its, again, charismatic nature while you're driving the car. So I'm looking at that, and back then when I shared this video, you can go watch it, where we talked about Tesla, talked about Grok. If no one who has studied Elon Musk for even like the past, I can't even know how, anyone who does a deep dive on Elon Musk, the guy has a ton of money, but morally, I'm not sure where he stands. I don't feel comfortable spending money with Elon Musk. If it's because I don't know, if it's unbeknownst to me, then sure, like whatever, I didn't know. But once you know that someone doesn't align with your values, you should not be spending money with that person. That's just a fact. And as a nation, or the leader of a nation, you also should be looking at things from that perspective. Mind you, there is a bit of a hypocritical part to this because you do have the conflicts taking place in other regions where, okay, well, is that not corrupt? Is that something that you want to get behind? But it's more complicated. So we're talking about Venezuela right now. In a situation where Trump is talking about spending money with this Venezuelan leader who has a descendant of Venezuela, a citizen of Venezuela saying this stuff about him. He's right. You are equipping, you are empowering a dictator. He said they were about to collapse, meaning they weren't being rewarded for having a chaotic country. They weren't being rewarded for it. So if they were about to become destabilized and they have a resource, the fact remains, guys, as many, like, listen, socialism needs to be studied. I love Tuttle Twins. For those of you who haven't yet, go subscribe to Angel Studios. Get that app. There's a series called Tuttle Twins, and they talk about Marxism, they talk about socialism, and it's in a cartoon. So it's like, it's palatable for people who literally like just don't understand what socialism really is, the pitfalls of it, the problems. Basically, socialism in a nutshell is what's super popular amongst people who are against reform on immigration, or in reform meaning bringing it so super simple. People who are mad at Trump for trying to cut down on new people coming in because of a lack of resources, because of crime, because a lot of these people coming in aren't quality members when it comes to their fruit, what they actually do when they get here. They're takers, they're not givers. Basically, most of the people who are against that are socialists. They're people who would prefer for the government to just pay for everything that people need to be comfortable and just make sure it's always coming from people who've made their money. But the joke of that is, if the people who have amassed more wealth, who can afford to pay for these services, don't want to do it anymore, they'll just leave the country. So there goes your benefits. There goes your beautiful country, because now you have destroyed the business owners who need to make distinctions, make good decisions so their businesses stay afloat in order for their taxes, or in order for them to create jobs, in order for them to form alliances in the country, look out for a region, make sure that the water doesn't get cut off because they live there, or because they have people that you know, report to them there. It's not as simple as just, guys, let's just print more money, because that happens, inflation goes up. We can't just hand out checks to everyone, because that also means when you hand out the checks, you have to now surrender more of your rights. And when you surrender more of your rights, all it takes is for one order to come down from your leader who handed you a check and tell you, listen, you know what? Because I gave you this check, you have to do whatever I say. And if doing whatever they say doesn't align with your spirit, especially as a Christian, haha, look what you've now done. You have created a new God for yourself, which is your government. All right, so just pay attention to that. Next video. Watch Tuttle Twins, guys. Watch Tuttle Twins.
Yes. Peace. Yes. Respect. Yes. Word. Student. Listen to me. Word. Word no. Never word.
I don't know what dude's trying to accomplish from that. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to become popular. He's a joker. Like, he's a funny guy. And I know that a lot of funny guys are prepared to do whatever it takes to rule, to take people's money, to control. There was nothing of substance he had to share. He was dancing. Of course, it's just a clip, but I'm concerned for the people of Venezuela. I am genuinely concerned. Like, if this is the man who is running your oil resources right now, and that stuff is happening, listen, God help you guys. However it plays out, God help you guys. I'm praying for Venezuela. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. If you have any feedback for me, or maybe there's some piece of news that you'd want me to dive into, provide commentary on, let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.